The moment my little niece came into the house, my German shepherds acted differently. They stayed close to her, their ears constantly alert, and growled at nothing. At first, I thought it was funny and assumed they were just being protective. But then, I noticed her looking nervously at the windows, and I started to worry. Last night, the dogs went crazy, barking and running to the front door. When I opened it and looked outside, what I saw made my blood run cold. My niece was settled on the living room floor, her fingers weaving through the threads of a colourful rug as she played quietly. Max and Ruby, my loyal German shepherds, sat close by, their eyes watching her every move. They wouldn't leave her side, no matter how many times I called them. It was unusual for them to be this attentive, but it seemed they knew something I didn't. There was something about the way she played that caught my attention. Her face looked pale, and she seemed unusually quiet today. I asked her, "Are you feeling okay, sweetie?" expecting a chirpy answer. She just gave a small nod and tried a weak smile before going back to her toys. I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was wrong. Her usual spark was missing. She just shrugged, not saying much at all. I noticed her eyes darting toward the windows now and then. It seemed odd, like she was expecting to see something or someone there. After every glance, she'd go back to her dolls in silence. She wasn't usually this jumpy. The dogs stayed close, huffing softly, as if ready to spring into action. I thought about talking to my sister to see if she had noticed anything strange. Just as I was deciding when to call, Max and Ruby suddenly shifted their attention toward the front door. It was like they sensed something or someone approaching. I watched them, wondering what had caught their attention this time. It felt like something was brewing outside. The moment grew tense as Max and Ruby's ears perked up, their tails stopping mid-wag. They planted themselves firmly by the door, a low growl rumbling from their throats, their eyes fixed on the door with fierce concentration. I had never seen them act this way before. Whatever was out there had them all worked up, and it was enough to make me uneasy too. I glanced over at my niece. She continued playing with her dolls, seemingly oblivious to the change in the dog's behavior. Part of me hoped she hadn't noticed anything and could just continue being a child, but the tension in the room was hard to ignore. Max and Ruby remained at the door, ready for whatever might be coming our way. The next morning, just as the sun peeked through the curtains, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find our neighbour, Mrs. Kramer, standing on the porch with a concerned look. "Good morning," I greeted her, trying to read her worried expression. It wasn't usual for her to drop by so early. Whatever she had to say, it couldn't be good. Mrs. Kramer wasted no time. "Is everything all right with your niece?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. I hesitated a moment, unsure what to say. "Honestly, I don't know yet," I replied. Mrs. Kramer always had a keen eye for neighbourhood happenings, so her concern was unsettling. I wondered if she'd noticed something I had missed. Could there be more to this than I realised? Mrs. Kramer went on to mention seeing unfamiliar kids hanging around near our yard. That got my brain ticking over what their presence might mean. Could they have something to do with the dog's behaviour, or my niece's quiet demeanour? As she spoke, I was already forming a new worry about why they were there. It seemed like I needed answers, and fast. I nodded, and thanked Mrs. Kramer for her concern. As I closed the door behind her, I noticed Max and Ruby still focused on the entryway. Their alertness was unsettling. Although they seemed to relax a little after the door shut, they continued watching, as if they expected something. Their behaviour had me wondering more about what was really going on, and what they knew that I didn't. Trying to shake off the uneasy feeling, I decided to do something fun. "Let's go get some ice cream," I suggested to my niece with a bright smile. She looked up, nodding slightly. It was a chance to lift her spirits and maybe find out more about what had been bothering her. I hoped the outing would make both of us feel better. As we walked to the ice cream shop, I noticed my niece's eyes brighten a bit. The thought of a sweet treat seemed to cheer her up. However, even when she smiled, I could see that something was still bothering her. I cautiously asked her more about her day, but her answers were short. It was clear that whatever it was, she wasn't ready to tell me yet. Once we had our ice cream, we headed to the park nearby. My niece ran ahead, playing under the slides as I sat on a bench. I kept a close watch, eyes occasionally drifting to other families mingling around. The dogs sat beside me, their eyes constantly scanning the park. Everything seemed normal, but I was now extra cautious about anything unusual. The dogs began sniffing the air, moving around more than usual. I followed their line of sight and saw a group of older kids riding bikes. They circled near where my niece played, drawing the attention of Max and Ruby. Their wagging tails showed no friendliness, just alertness. I found myself watching them closely, trying to figure out if they posed any threat. My heart skipped a beat when my niece suddenly froze. The group of kids had stopped nearby, their eyes fixed on her. Their cold stares sent a shiver down my spine. I remained on the bench, watching for any sign of trouble. My niece stood still, unsure of what to do next. The tension was thick, and it took all my willpower to remain seated. With a quick glance back at me, my niece darted behind the swings, trying to hide from view. The kids didn't approach her, but they exchanged smirks, as if amused by her fear. I watched the scene, sensing something wasn't right. The kids' behavior seemed mean, and it bothered me. Max and Ruby stood up, ready to act if needed. It was time to make a decision. The unsettling behavior of the other kids got to me. I stood up and made my way over to my niece. "Hey there," I called gently. "How about we head back home?" She nodded quickly, relief washing over her face. We left the park, the dogs sticking close to us. Their watchful eyes made me feel a little safer, even though questions still lingered. As we walked back, my niece seemed to relax with each step away from the park. Her shoulders weren't so tense anymore, and she even reached out to pat Max and Ruby. The dogs led the way, moving at a brisk pace. I couldn't shake the feeling that they knew something I didn't, something that made them so protective of her. Back at home, I couldn't hold back my curiosity any longer. Sitting at the kitchen table with a glass of juice, I tried a more casual approach. "So, who were those kids at the park?" I asked, hoping she'd feel comfortable enough to open up. Her face clouded over again, and she just shrugged. I knew I had to be patient, but also attentive to her needs. After asking about the kids at the park, I noticed my niece's body grow tense. She shifted her gaze to the floor, her silence saying more than words could. It was as if something heavy weighed her down, something she wasn't ready to voice. I felt the need to protect her grow stronger with each passing second. I couldn't push her, but I knew I needed to show her she could trust me. Finally, she whispered quietly, avoiding my gaze. "They say mean things sometimes." My heart sank a bit at her quiet confession. I couldn't believe other kids could be so hurtful. It was clear that those words really troubled her, more than she seemed willing to admit. This little confession opened a window into understanding, but there was still more she hadn't shared. I wanted to reassure her, even if just a little. Trying to soothe her worries, I leaned forward and said, "You know you're safe here, right? Max and Ruby won't let anything happen to you." Just as a small smile touched her lips, the doorbell rang loudly. It was sudden and unexpected, immediately drawing the dogs' attention. Their ears perked up as they rushed to the door. I followed cautiously, wondering who could be visiting us now. Max started barking, and Ruby let out a low growl, standing alert at the door. That protective stance of theirs made me reach for the handle carefully. I opened it with a mix of curiosity and concern, half expecting to find someone familiar standing on the other side. The dogs were ready to pounce if needed, and I couldn't help but feel both nervous and thankful for their presence. To my relief, it was just a delivery person holding a package. I thanked him, closing the door with a sigh. The dogs settled back a bit, though their eyes still watched closely. The little incident highlighted the tension lingering in our home. Even with the package clutched in my hands, the air seemed thick with an unspoken worry. Things had to change soon, I thought, for all of our sakes. The days after the incident felt a little strained. Every movement outside seemed to set Max and Ruby on high alert. I noticed then that my niece stayed closer to them than before, almost as if they were her safe space. This close relationship with the dogs gave me both comfort and concern. I knew I needed to find out more about what caused her such anxiety. My niece seemed more relaxed with both Max and Ruby by her side. Still, whatever was causing her distress hadn't disappeared entirely. I decided it was time to talk to my sister about what I'd noticed. Maybe she had insight which could shed light on the situation. Watching the dogs curl up beside my niece, I made a mental note to call her later that evening. In our conversation, my sister mentioned that the dog's protective behavior was something new. We shared ideas on what might have changed to make them act this way. Perhaps there was something around our neighborhood that made them uneasy. The thought of Max and Ruby noticing disturbances we couldn't was unsettling, but also reassuring. Their presence seemed to be what my niece needed. My niece finally started talking a bit more during our late afternoon talks. She admitted, "They kept calling me names." Her voice was tiny, but the words struck hard. Bullies were such a painful reality, especially for someone so young. As much as it hurt to hear, it was another piece of the puzzle. It was hard to imagine what those harsh words did to her sweet spirit. Listening to my niece's story, I couldn't ignore the intensity in her voice anymore. It was enough to stir concern deep inside me. Something needed to be done, and soon. The way those kids' words affected her couldn't continue. It was clear this issue had to be addressed for everyone's peace. With determination, I decided it was time to step in and make sure she felt safe again. My sister agreed with the idea of talking to the other kids' parents. It seemed like a necessary step after hearing what my niece had been through. For now, we tried to make her feel supported at home. That evening, we watched her favorite movie together, hoping to lift her spirits. The laughter helped a little, but it was clear she still needed more reassurance. We decided to host a small gathering at our house. Aim was to create an opportunity where the neighborhood kids could interact comfortably. My hope was that the laid-back setting could reveal more about my niece's situation. If everyone came over, maybe we could observe the dynamics between the kids. It felt like a casual approach might provide the insights we needed. The plan was set, but my niece was hesitant about joining. It was understandable, considering her recent experiences. Nevertheless, with a gentle nudge, she eventually agreed to participate. She knew Max and Ruby would be by her side, which offered much-needed comfort. I promised her I'd keep a close eye on things, hoping it would be enough to ease her reluctance. The other children started to trickle in, and I could see their curious yet distant looks. It wasn't very reassuring, but I stayed optimistic. Max and Ruby, true to their nature, stayed close to my niece. Their presence was like an unspoken shield, helping her feel secure. As the backyard filled with laughter, I hoped to see some positive interactions unfold. As the gathering continued, I remained vigilant while mingling. My niece exchanged a few shy words with some of the kids. Those moments were small victories in my mind, although her eyes still carried the shadow of caution. Each social exchange was like a tiny step toward recovery. My sister and I made sure to stay within earshot, ready to jump in if things became uncomfortable. While keeping an eye on my niece, I noticed some kids casting glances in her direction. Their occasional giggles added to the unease in my stomach. My niece seemed to shrink back into herself whenever this happened. Her playfulness all but vanished into thin air. The scene was troubling, heightening my determination to protect her and address the underlying issues soon. The sight of my niece feeling vulnerable like that was heartbreaking. My sister and I exchanged concerned glances, sharing an unspoken agreement about our next steps. We knew we had to intervene somehow, but needed to figure out the best way to do it. It felt urgent, even while we continued to put on a brave face for the children around us. A moment of worry hit me when my niece suddenly vanished from my view. I scanned the room, hoping she'd just slipped into another conversation. But when I couldn't spot her, alarming thoughts rushed into my mind. I quickly excused myself from a conversation I was having, immediately feeling the pressing need to find her. There was no time to waste. Max and Ruby's fervent barking drew my attention to the backyard. Following their lead, I found my niece sitting by herself, cradling her knees. Relief washed over me, mixed with concern for what had driven her there. The dogs paced softly around her, a quiet reminder of their guardianship. I approached her gently, wishing I could wrap her in assurance. I saw her red cheeks and the tears brimming in her eyes. Not far off, a group of kids stood, their watchful gaze piercing through the atmosphere. This scene was a testament to the troubles she faced, pushing my patience to act. With the dogs still standing guard, I knelt beside her, whispering words of comfort. It was all about making her feel safe again. I called my niece back into the house, trying my best to keep my worry from showing. As she approached, I noticed her wiping her face hurriedly. Max and Ruby trailed closely, their eyes full of concern. It was clear something was bothering her deeply. Whatever the issue, I knew I needed to get to the bottom of it for her sake. When she was inside, Max and Ruby nudged her gently with their noses. They seemed to sense that she was in distress and wanted to comfort her. Just then, Mrs. Kramer, our neighbor, approached us. Her face mirrored the concern I felt, and she asked if everything was all right. For a moment, I didn't know what to say, but her presence was somehow reassuring. Mrs. Kramer and I talked about the kids we had seen around. She had noticed some odd behavior too. I couldn't help but feel a strong determination take root inside me. I realized I needed to intervene and find out exactly what was happening with my niece. She deserved to feel safe and happy, and I was going to make sure she did. The more time went by, the more uneasy my niece seemed, even with the dogs by her side. It was like a shadow of worry was always present. Her usual cheerfulness was being replaced by a constant worry. It was clear that merely being around Max and Ruby wasn't enough to erase the unease. I had to figure out what the issue was, and quickly. Whenever my niece cried, Max and Ruby would be right there. They licked her hands and put their heads in her lap, trying to bring her some comfort. She seemed to appreciate their company, but it was clear this problem needed a resolution soon. This couldn't go on forever. Watching her struggle silently was hard, knowing that I had to step up and take action. I arranged a meeting with the neighbor's family. We gathered in our living room, trying to keep the atmosphere respectful and calm. It wasn't easy bringing these issues up, but it needed to be done. Facing them directly took courage, but I hoped it would lead to better understanding. My niece watched quietly, a little anxious, as we prepared to address the problems at hand. Sharing the truth about what my niece had been experiencing wasn't easy, but I knew it was necessary. Her parents were taken aback when they heard about the bullying incidents. Their shocked expressions mirrored my initial reaction. It was a lot to take in, but I hoped they would understand the importance of addressing these issues for everyone's sake, especially their own children. The kids involved joined the conversation too, their expressions shifting from reluctance to genuine thoughtfulness. Under the combined scrutiny of the adults, it was clear they hadn't considered the effect of their actions. It was important to handle this with care, without laying blame, but rather guiding them to understand. It was the start of what I hoped would be positive change. We all agreed on finding positive solutions to improve the situation. For my niece, this meeting offered some hope. Knowing that steps were being taken to address the issue made her seem a bit brighter. We all wanted to see changes for the better, and everyone was committed to making sure it happened. It was comforting to see a plan taking shape. After the talk, the tension from before lingered less over time. My niece was beginning to seem like herself again, a hopeful glint returning to her eyes. She was more at ease, and even Max and Ruby seemed to sense the change. Their vigilance was still there, but they were more relaxed. It was a relief to see the positive effect the meeting had. It was nice to see the older kids starting to change their behavior. With some encouragement and understanding from everyone, they were acting more friendly and respectful. The neighborhood began to feel peaceful again. It was like we all turned over a new leaf together. We were slowly becoming a community that looked out for one another, and it was essential for everyone to feel safe and welcome. Talking openly really brought us closer together. everyone appreciated the courage it took to address the issue. It made us realize just how important it was to communicate honestly with each other. Our combined efforts brought about the positive change everyone needed. Seeing the kids getting along and the smiles returning to their faces was rewarding. It was comforting to know that speaking up had made such a difference. Max and Ruby finally sensed the calmness returning to our home. Their watchful eyes softened, and they began to relax more around my niece. Their constant alertness seemed to fade as trust settled in. They still stayed close, but it was clear they felt she was safer now. Seeing them at ease was heartwarming for all of us. It reminded me of the strong bond they had with her. The past few weeks had their share of tension. Everyone was on edge, and it took a toll on us. Watching my niece smile more as days went by was a big relief. Her laughter returned, a sound I dearly missed. The entire neighborhood felt lighter with each passing day. Slowly, we found our way back to the daily joys, grateful for the peaceful moments that finally settled in. Mrs. Kramer stopped by with good news. "I've seen a big change in the kids," she said with a smile. Her kind words reassured us that our efforts made a difference. We were thankful for her support and for helping us bridge understanding among neighbors. Our little community was growing stronger, fostering kindness and respect. It was comforting to see everyone working together for a harmonious neighborhood. Things seemed better, but a part of me decided it was wise to stay watchful. Keeping an eye on the kids gave me reassurance. I spent more time at the window, watching them play outside. It was important to make sure they all felt welcome and free from fear. While life returned to normal, being vigilant ensured their safety and happiness endured. I wanted only the best for my niece. My niece began sharing more about her day excitedly. Her stories were filled with happy details, and it was a joy to hear her voice with such intrigue. "Can my friends come over to play?" she asked. Encouraging her to invite friends over often was important, as it helped her feel more secure and confident. It was a delight to watch her interact and enjoy the company of friends. Max and Ruby seemed to be themselves again. They resumed their playful routine, chasing after the ball or lounging around. Yet, their sense of duty still showed, because they followed her sometimes. Their playful nature brought much-needed joy into the house. It was clearer each day that their loyalty and love were unwavering. Watching them thrive alongside my niece was a gift that no one took for granted. Their dedication had always amazed us, even though it was instinctual. My niece confessed they made her feel safer. "I'm glad they're with me," she said, with heartfelt sincerity. We all marveled at how pure and instinctive Max and Ruby's protection was. The love they showed through simple acts ensured her safety and happiness. Knowing they were always by her side was a comfort like no other. I realized just how special Max and Ruby were. Their role had extended beyond simple companionship. They guarded her both physically and emotionally. They demonstrated their unique way of loving and protecting, making it clear that their bond with her was unbreakable. These gentle giants touched our hearts with their attentiveness and care, proving that the right companions could make a world of difference in someone's life. We never let a day pass without feeling grateful for our close-knit family and the love that held us all together. Every night, we'd come together, sharing laughs and little blessings we counted. Sitting around the dinner table, we each took turns to say what made our day special. It was a wonderful way to remind ourselves how fortunate we were to have each other. Finally, after some gentle coaxing, my niece opened up about her troubles. Her small voice trembled as she admitted being bullied by the neighbor's older kids. The confession was a heavy yet revealing moment, explaining so much about the changes we'd seen in her. It took a lot of courage for her to share something so personal, and we listened attentively, ready to help. Until now, the fear of making things worse had silenced her. She had believed that speaking up might cause more problems. This was why she'd kept quiet, hoping it would all just go away. In those moments of feeling afraid, Max and Ruby had stepped up, becoming her silent protectors when she needed them most. It was like they sensed when she was afraid and stood guard without fail. Max and Ruby had this uncanny ability to pick up on what others missed. Their senses seemed to catch the danger lurking where most wouldn't have looked twice. Each time they stood watchful by her side, they alleviated the fears that she couldn't shake off alone. Helping her see she wasn't alone anymore, she began to face each day with a bit more courage and hope. As a family, we made a pact to shower her with kindness and reassurance, helping her heal at her own pace. The growing sense of community support warmed our hearts, reminding us how valuable these connections were. Each smile exchanged and each kind word shared contributed to her recovery. With time, she blossomed, finding her footing again in the safe embrace of care and understanding. My niece started making new friends, gradually shaking off any lingering doubts. Each day brought a fresh opportunity for her to enjoy the company of others, and she started embracing these new friendships with enthusiasm. Meanwhile, Max and Ruby kept a considerate eye on her, never straying too far. Their presence was comforting to everyone as she gained more confidence in herself. Hand in hand, we worked on rebuilding trust, promising to be there for each other when it mattered most. As a unified family, we learned that challenges could be overcome. Our efforts fostered an environment where fears slowly dissipated. With every step forward, peace gradually returned to our home, and a true sense of unity began to settle in, reassuring us all in the process. Max and Ruby proved to be more than just pets. Their loyalty was a pillar of strength during this entire journey. They never let us down, keeping alert to ensure my niece's safety at every turn. Their protective instincts mirrored the unbreakable bonds within our family, showing us how important it was to stay connected. We're grateful for their devotion and guidance through tough times. With each growing burst of confidence, we cheered her on, happy to see her resilience emerging. Our family's unity stood strong, bolstered by the trials we had faced and overcome together. Her determination inspired us all, igniting a spirit of strength and perseverance in our hearts. Each day, the bond shared among us grew stronger, reminding us of the power of family and courage. Together, we navigated through the rough patches, emerging victorious like a force unbroken. The protection and love surrounding my niece were undeniable, providing her with hope and peace she needed. Our journey had strengthened our bond even further, deepening our love and trust for each other. Our collective joy eclipsed the past struggles, leaving us stronger and readier to embrace whatever the future held.